The city was a graveyard of shadows. Smoke twisted into the sky, and the scent of ash clung to the air like a bitter memory. Above, alien warships hovered in oppressive silence, their sleek forms glinting in the faint light of burning buildings. Their invasion had been swift and merciless, leaving humanity scattered and broken. In the ruins of what was once a bustling metropolis, a figure darted through the rubble. Nathan Reyes, a young mechanic with grease-stained hands and a defiant spark in his eye, clutched a small device to his chest. He was not a soldier, but today he was humanity's last hope. Behind him, the metallic clatter of alien patrols grew louder. The invaders, with their cold, insect-like precision, had been hunting him for hours. He had no weapon, no plan beyond survival, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let them capture the device. It was a prototype, a last-ditch effort by Earth's brightest minds. If deployed, it could sever the aliens' neural links, turning their advanced coordination into chaos. But it was fragile, temperamental, and its range was limited. Nathan's job was to deliver it to the center of the enemy's command zone, a feat that seemed impossible with every passing moment. As he rounded a corner, Nathan's foot slipped on a loose brick. He stumbled, his heart lurching as the device jostled in his grasp. A low, guttural growl echoed behind him, followed by the unmistakable hum of alien energy weapons. They were close, too close. Breathless, Nathan ducked into an abandoned building. The walls were pockmarked with scorch marks, and the air inside was thick with dust. He pressed himself against the cold concrete, his chest heaving as he tried to quiet his breathing. "They're everywhere," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his heart. "I'm not a hero. What am I even doing?" But then he remembered the faces of the people he'd left behind. The young girl who had handed him the device with trembling hands, the old man who had whispered, "We're counting on you." They were gone now, victims of the relentless invasion, but their hope lived on in him. Gritting his teeth, Nathan peeked around the corner. The patrol was closing in, their glowing eyes scanning the ruins with unyielding precision. He had seconds to act. He took a deep breath and sprinted toward an alleyway, his legs burning with every step. Plasma bolts sizzled past him, lighting up the darkness with flashes of green. One of the bolts struck a car nearby, sending shards of glass raining down. Nathan shielded his face, the device clutched tightly in his arms. Just a little further, he thought, his mind racing. The command zone was less than a mile away, but it felt like an eternity. Every step brought him closer to salvation and closer to death. The patrol was relentless, their guttural clicks echoing through the alley. Nathan could feel the heat of their weapons at his back. Desperation clawed at his mind, but he forced himself to keep moving. His breath came in ragged gasps, his vision blurred by sweat and tears. Then, just as he thought he couldn't go any further, a voice crackled in his earpiece. "Nathan, do you copy?" It was Clara, the Resistance's lead strategist. Her voice was calm but urgent. "We've got eyes on you. There's an extraction team 2 blocks east. Can you make it?" Nathan swallowed hard, his throat dry. I'll try. You have to," Clara said firmly. "You're the only chance we've got." Summoning every ounce of strength, Nathan turned toward the extraction point. The streets were a maze of debris and wreckage, but he pushed forward, his resolve fueled by Clara's words. He didn't want to be a hero, but he couldn't let humanity down. The extraction point came into view, a battered van hidden beneath the wreckage of a collapsed building. A group of resistance fighters waved him over, their faces etched with determination. Nathan's heart soared with relief, but his reprieve was short-lived. The patrol had caught up, their weapons charging for a final strike. "Get down," one of the fighters shouted, raising a makeshift rocket launcher. The blast rocked the street, sending a shockwave through the air. Nathan hit the ground, the device still cradled in his arms, as the patrol was engulfed in flames. When the dust settled, the fighters pulled him to his feet. "You made it," one of them said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Let's get you out of here." But as they loaded Nathan into the van, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The aliens were far from defeated, and the road ahead was fraught with danger. Yet, for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Because in the darkest of times, even an ordinary mechanic could rise to become something more. And as the van roared to life, Nathan knew that the fight for humanity's survival was just beginning. The resistance van sped through the shattered streets, weaving between the remains of toppled skyscrapers and burnt-out vehicles. Inside, Nathan sat clutching the device, his hands trembling as adrenaline coursed through his veins. The fighters around him were a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, their faces hardened by loss yet alight with determination. Clara's voice crackled over the van's radio. "Good work getting out of there, but we're not in the clear yet. Enemy drones are tracking your position. Head to Safehouse Echo and wait for further instructions." The driver, a burly man named Marcus, grunted in acknowledgement. "Copy Copy that, he said, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. Let's hope this thing holds together long enough to get us there. Nathan glanced out the window, his thoughts a storm of doubt and fear. The weight of the device in his lap felt heavier with each passing second. What happens if this thing doesn't work? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. A woman seated across from him, her face scarred and her eyes sharp, leaned forward. Then we keep fighting, she said simply, because that's what we do. We fight, we survive, and we don't give up. Her words, though blunt, struck a chord in Nathan. He nodded, his resolve hardening. He didn't want to be a hero, but he knew he couldn't let these people down. They were counting on him, just as the world was counting on all of them. As the van approached the safe house, a low hum filled the air. The fighters tensed, their eyes scanning the skies. Drones, Marcus muttered. Everyone hold on. The hum grew louder, and seconds later, a swarm of alien drones descended from the clouds, their sleek forms glinting in the dim light. They moved with terrifying precision, their energy weapons charging as they locked onto the van. Incoming, one of the fighters shouted, raising their rifle. The van swerved violently as Marcus tried to evade the drones, while the fighters leaned out of the windows, firing at the relentless machines. Plasma bolts lit up the night, their glow illuminating the chaos. Nathan clung to the device as the van jolted and swerved, his heart racing. A drone's energy bolt struck the rear of the van, causing it to lurch violently. We're hit, Marcus yelled. We're not gonna make it at this rate. The scarred woman, who Nathan now knew as Nadia, grabbed a grenade launcher from the floor. Keep driving, she said, climbing onto the roof of the van. I'll handle this. Nathan watched in awe as Nadia stood atop the speeding vehicle, her silhouette framed by the chaos around her. She fired the launcher with precision, taking down drone after drone. Her courage was infectious, and for the first time, Nathan felt a spark of hope. She's insane, Marcus muttered, his eyes darting between the road and the battle above. But damn, she's good. Despite Nadia's efforts, the drones kept coming. Their numbers seemed endless, and the van was running out of time. Just as despair began to creep in, Clara's voice crackled over the radio. Reinforcements are en route. Hold your position. Minutes later, a roar filled the air as a squadron of resistance fighters on hover bikes appeared over the horizon. Their arrival turned the tide, the drones falling one by one under the combined firepower. When the last drone was destroyed, the van finally reached the safe house, a hidden bunker buried beneath the ruins of an old factory. As they scrambled inside, Nathan looked around at the fighters who had risked their lives for him. He felt a pang of guilt, but also a deep sense of gratitude. These people were heroes in their own right, and their bravery inspired him to keep going. Inside the safe house, Clara was waiting for them. She was a tall woman with a commanding presence, her sharp eyes assessing the group as they entered. You made it, she said, her voice filled with relief. Good work, all of you. Nathan handed her the device, his hands still trembling. What now? He asked. Clara examined the device, her expression grim. Now we figure out how to use this to end the war, she said. And we're running out of time. The room fell silent as her words sank in. The war was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, they had a fighting chance. And as Nathan looked around at the determined faces of his comrades, he realized that heroes weren't born. They were made in moments like this. We'll make it work, Nadia said, her voice steady. We have to. Nathan nodded, his resolve solidifying. The fight for humanity's survival was just beginning, but he knew they wouldn't face it alone. Together, they would rise, and together, they would become the legends that the world needed. Days turned into weeks as the resistance worked tirelessly to prepare for their next move. The alien forces, though shaken by the loss of their drones, showed no signs of retreating. Their warships hovered ominously over the planet, their presence a constant reminder of the enemy's overwhelming power. Nathan found himself thrust into a world he barely understood. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was part of something bigger, a war effort that stretched across continents and skies. Under Clara's guidance, he trained alongside the resistance fighters, learning to handle weapons, navigate enemy territory, and most importantly, believe in himself. Nadia took him under her wing, her tough exterior hiding a surprising depth of kindness. She pushed him to his limits, but she also knew when to offer words of encouragement. You've got potential, Reyes, she said one day after a grueling training session. Don't waste it. Nathan's progress didn't go unnoticed. Clara, ever the strategist, began to see him as more than just a delivery boy. She saw someone who could inspire others, someone who could be a symbol of resilience. People need hope, she told him, and you're proof that even the most ordinary person can rise to extraordinary heights. Despite his growing confidence, Nathan couldn't shake the weight of the device he had delivered. It was now being modified by a team of engineers and scientists, its potential to disrupt the aliens' neural neural links becoming clearer with each passing day. But the modifications required time, and time was a luxury they didn't have. The aliens, perhaps sensing the Resistance's growing strength, launched a brutal counteroffensive. Cities that had been spared were now under siege, their inhabitants fleeing to the Resistance's hidden shelters. The fight for survival became even more desperate, and the lines between victory and defeat blurred. In the midst of this chaos, a breakthrough came. The scientists, led by a brilliant but eccentric physicist named Dr. Elias Varn, managed to complete the modifications on the device. It was now capable of targeting the neural networks of an entire fleet, but it needed to be deployed from within one of the alien warships, a task that seemed impossible. Clara called a meeting to discuss the plan. The room was filled with the Resistance's leaders, their faces etched with determination. Nathan sat among them, feeling out of place but unwilling to back down. The warship housing their central command node is the key, Clara began, pointing to a holographic map. If we can deploy the device there, it will cripple their entire fleet. But the ship is heavily fortified, and getting inside will require a coordinated effort. Nadia leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. I'll lead the team, she said, but we'll need someone to operate the device. It's too complex to leave to chance. All eyes turned to Dr. Varn, who adjusted his glasses nervously. The device requires precision, he said, but I've trained someone who can handle it. Someone who has already proven themselves under pressure. Nathan's heart sank as he realized what Varn was implying. You can't be serious, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Varn nodded. You're the best candidate, Nathan. You've already delivered it once. Now you need to finish the job. The room fell silent as Nathan processed the weight of Varn's words. He wanted to refuse, to argue that he wasn't a hero, but deep down he knew the truth. This was his chance to make a difference, to repay the sacrifices of those who had come before him. I'll do it, he said finally, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. Whatever it takes. The plan was set in motion. Under the cover of darkness, the team infiltrated the warship, their movements swift and silent. The interior of the ship was a labyrinth of sleek corridors and glowing panels, its alien design both awe-inspiring and terrifying. As they approached the command node, the tension grew palpable. The alien guards, though fewer in number than expected, were relentless in their defense. The team fought with everything they had, their weapons blazing as they pushed forward. Nathan stayed close to Nadia, the device clutched tightly in his hands. He felt like an imposter among these seasoned fighters, but their unwavering determination gave him strength. Every step forward felt like a victory, every alien they defeated a reminder of what was at stake. When they finally reached the command node, the room erupted into chaos. Alarms blared, and alien reinforcements poured in from every direction. Nadia and the others held the line, their voices a mix of shouts and battle cries. Go, Nathan! Nadia yelled, her voice cutting through the noise. We'll cover you. With trembling hands, Nathan approached the central console. The device hummed to life as he activated it, its lights pulsing in sync with his racing heartbeat. He followed Varn's instructions to the letter, his focus unshaken despite the chaos around him. As the device reached full power, a surge of energy rippled through the room. The alien reinforcements froze in place, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. The device was working, disrupting their neural links and throwing their fleet into disarray. But the victory came at a cost. The room shook violently as the warship systems began to collapse. Sparks rained down from the ceiling, and the walls groaned under the strain. The team had moments to escape, but Nathan hesitated. Come on, Nadia shouted, grabbing his arm. We have to go. Nathan nodded, his legs moving on instinct as they sprinted toward the exit. Behind them, the warship began to implode, its once mighty structure reduced to a crumbling shell. When they finally reached the extraction point, Nathan collapsed onto the ground, his chest heaving. He looked around at his comrades, their faces filled with a mix of exhaustion and relief. They had done it. They had struck a blow against the enemy that would be remembered for generations. As they watched the warship fall from the sky, a sense of hope filled the air. The fight was far from over, but for the first time it felt winnable. And as Nathan looked at the faces of those around him, he realized that heroes weren't just the stuff of legends. They were ordinary people, rising to meet extraordinary challenges. And in that moment, he knew that he had become one of them. The destruction of the alien warship marked a turning point in the war. For the first time, the invaders were on the defensive, their once unyielding coordination shattered by the Resistance's daring mission. Across the globe, news of the victory spread like wildfire, igniting hope in the hearts of those who had all but given up. Nathan's actions became a symbol of resilience. His name was whispered in shelters and shouted in battle cries, a reminder that even the most unlikely heroes could change the course of history. But Nathan himself struggled to reconcile his newfound status with the weight of his choices. Back at the Resistance's headquarters, Clara approached him as he sat alone in the mess hall, his hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm coffee. "You did good out there," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Nathan looked up, his eyes tired but resolute. "People died because of me," he said quietly. "I'm not sure I can live with that." Clara sat across from him, her expression unreadable. "People died because of the war," she said. "But because of you, we have a chance to end it. Don't let their sacrifices be in vain." Her words stayed with Nathan as the Resistance prepared for their next move. The aliens, though weakened, were far from defeated. Their remaining warships regrouped, their attacks becoming more erratic and desperate. The Resistance knew they had to act quickly to capitalize on their advantage. In the weeks that followed, Nathan trained harder than ever, honing his skills and stepping into a leadership role he never wanted but couldn't refuse. Nadia, ever the relentless mentor, pushed him to his limits. "Heroes don't get to rest," she said with a wry smile. "Not until the job's done." As the Resistance launched a series of coordinated strikes against the alien forces, Nathan found himself at the center of the action. He led missions into enemy territory, negotiated with fractured resistance cells, and inspired others to join the fight. Each victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal, but it also came at a cost. The final battle came sooner than anyone expected. The aliens, their numbers dwindling, gathered their remaining forces for a last-ditch assault on Earth's largest resistance stronghold. It was a move born of desperation, but it forced the Resistance into a fight they couldn't avoid. Nathan stood on the front lines alongside Nadia, Clara, and the rest of the fighters who had become his family. The sky was dark with alien warships, their engines roaring as they descended upon the city. The ground shook with the impact of their weapons, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke and plasma. But the Resistance was ready. Armed with the knowledge they had gained from the warship mission, they fought with a unity that matched the invaders' precision. The battle raged for hours, each side refusing to yield. In the midst of the chaos, Nathan found himself face to face with an alien commander, a towering figure clad in gleaming armor. The commander's voice, distorted through a translation device, was calm but menacing. "You fight for a world that is already lost," it said. Nathan tightened his grip on his weapon, his heart pounding. "No," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "We fight for a world worth saving." The battle between them was brief but fierce, a clash of strength and determination. When it was over, Nathan stood victorious, his breath ragged but his resolve unbroken. Around him, the Resistance pushed forward, their combined efforts driving the aliens back. As the enemy fleet retreated into the skies, a cheer erupted from the Resistance fighters. The battle was won, and with it, the war. The aliens, crippled and demoralized, abandoned their campaign, leaving Earth to rebuild and recover. In the days that followed, the Resistance celebrated their hard-earned victory. Nathan, now a reluctant hero, found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He thought of the people he had lost, the sacrifices they had made, and the lessons they had taught him. Standing on a hill overlooking the city, now bathed in the golden light of a setting sun, Nathan felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Nadia joined him, her expression softening as she followed his gaze. "You did good, Reyes," she said, her tone free of its usual sarcasm. "You're a real pain in the ass, but you did good." Nathan chuckled, the sound light despite the heaviness in his heart. "Couldn't have done it without you," he said. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in shadow, Nathan realized that the fight for humanity's survival had been more than just a battle against an enemy. It had been a testament to the resilience, courage, and unity that defined them as a people. And though he had never wanted to be a hero, he knew now that heroes weren't chosen. They were forged in the crucible of adversity. They were ordinary people who rose to extraordinary challenges, their actions echoing through history as a beacon of hope. Nathan Reyes, the mechanic who had become a legend, walked back toward the city, ready to face whatever the future might hold. The years that followed the war became a time of rebuilding and reconciliation. The remnants of the alien fleet, now leaderless and scattered, were either repurposed for peaceful use or dismantled entirely. Earth, scarred by years of conflict, began to heal. Cities rose from the ashes, their designs blending human ingenuity with salvaged alien technology. Nathan Reyes became a symbol of hope, his story immortalized in songs, books, and monuments. But he shied away from the limelight, preferring to focus on the quieter work of rebuilding lives. Alongside Nadia, Clara, and the others who had fought by his side, he helped establish a global coalition to ensure humanity would never again face such devastation. The coalition, named the Unity Accord, became a beacon of cooperation and progress. It fostered innovations in medicine, energy, and exploration, its reach extending far far beyond Earth. Former resistance fighters took on roles as diplomats and scientists, their experiences shaping policies that prioritized unity over division. For Nathan, the most rewarding moments were the small ones, teaching children to repair machines, planting trees in the ruins of old battlegrounds, and sitting around campfires with the people who had become his family. He often visited the monument erected in the heart of the city, its inscription simple but powerful. "In our darkest hour, we found our light." One day, as Nathan stood before the monument, he was joined by a young girl clutching a sketchbook. She looked up at him with wide eyes, her face a mix of awe and curiosity. "Are you the Nathan Reyes?" she asked. Nathan chuckled, crouching down to meet her gaze. "Depends on who's asking," he said with a smile. The girl held up her sketchbook, revealing a drawing of the Resistance's final battle. "My teacher says you're a hero," she said. "Is that true?" Nathan hesitated, his thoughts drifting to the people he had lost and the sacrifices they had made. "I think a hero is someone who keeps trying, even when it's hard," he said finally. "And there were a lot of heroes back then. I just happened to be one of them." The girl nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I want to be a hero someday," she said. Nathan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You already are," he said. "Every time you help someone, every time you stand up for what's right, you're making a difference. And that's what being a hero is all about." As the girl ran off to join her friends, Nathan felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The war was over, but its lessons lived on in the hearts of those who had survived. Humanity, once fractured and vulnerable, had emerged stronger, its resilience a testament to the power of unity. Decades later, the Unity Accord launched its first interstellar mission. The ship, named the Dawnlight, carried representatives from every corner of Earth, its purpose to explore the stars and extend a hand of friendship to any who might need it. Nathan, now an elder statesman of the Accord, watched from the observation deck as the ship disappeared into the void. Beside him stood Nadia, her hair streaked with gray but her spirit as fiery as ever. "Think they'll find anything out there?" she asked. Nathan smiled, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe they'll just remind the universe that even in the darkest places, there's always a spark of light." As the stars above shimmered, the story of humanity's resilience continued. A story of heroes who rose in the face of impossible odds, and of a people who refused to let the darkness win. And somewhere, in the infinite expanse of the cosmos, that story burned brightly, a beacon of hope for all who would follow. The story of Earth's survival and resurgence became a guiding light for civilizations across the galaxy. As the Unity Accord expanded its reach, its message of hope and resilience resonated far beyond its borders. The Dawnlight, Earth's first interstellar vessel, became an emissary of peace, its voyages forging connections with newfound allies. On one such mission, the crew of the Dawnlight encountered a civilization that had suffered a fate similar to Earth's. Their cities lay in ruins, their people scattered, and their hope all but extinguished. Yet, as the crew shared the story of Nathan Reyes and the Resistance, something remarkable happened. The shattered remnants of that civilization began to rebuild, inspired by the knowledge that even in the darkest times, recovery was possible. Back on Earth, the legacy of the Resistance was preserved in countless ways. Schools taught the history of the war, emphasizing the importance of unity and compassion. Memorials and museums honored the sacrifices of those who had fought, ensuring their stories would never be forgotten. And in every corner of the planet, people carried forward the lessons of the past, building a future defined by collaboration and understanding. Nathan, now in the twilight of his life, spent his days mentoring the next generation of leaders. He often spoke of the friends he had made and the lessons they had taught him. "A hero doesn't stand alone," he would say. "A hero rises because of the people who stand with them." As he walked through the streets of the rebuilt city, Nathan marveled at the progress humanity had made. The scars of war had faded, replaced by thriving communities and innovative technologies. The world was not the same as it had been before the invasion. It was stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. One day, as Nathan sat beneath a tree in a park, a tree grown from the seeds of a grove planted in honor of the Resistance, a group of children approached him. They carried books and drawings, their faces alight with curiosity. "Will you tell us a story?" one of them asked, holding out a book titled Legends of the Resistance. Nathan smiled, his heart full. "All right," he said, his voice warm and steady. "But this isn't just a story about me. It's about all of us, about what we can achieve when we stand together." As he spoke, the children listened intently, their imaginations painting vivid pictures of the battles, the victories, and the heroes who had shaped their world. Nathan's words, simple but powerful, carried the weight of experience and the hope of a brighter future. When the story ended, one of the children asked, "Do you think there will be more heroes like you?" Nathan's smile deepened. "There already are," he said. "Every time someone chooses kindness kindness over hatred, courage over fear, or unity over division, they're a hero. And that's what makes us strong. As the children ran off to play, their laughter ringing through the air, Nathan leaned back against the tree, his thoughts turning to the past and the future. The journey had been long and fraught with hardship, but it had also been beautiful, a testament to the enduring power of hope. And somewhere, in the boundless expanse of the cosmos, the light of humanity's resilience continued to shine, a beacon for all who sought to find their way in the darkness. Generations later, the legacy of the Unity Accord extended beyond anything its founders could have imagined. Earth had become a hub of interstellar cooperation, its skies filled with ships from across the galaxy. The lessons of the Resistance, once hard-won, now guided a new age of exploration, diplomacy, and peace. On the anniversary of the war's end, a grand ceremony was held at the Celestial Nexus, a sprawling station that orbited Earth and served as the heart of the Accord. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered to honor the heroes of the past and celebrate the progress they had made together. The centerpiece of the ceremony was a monument unlike any other, a living sculpture grown from the seeds of trees planted on every Harmony world. Its branches stretched toward the stars, each leaf inscribed with the names of those who had fought and sacrificed for peace. At its base, a plaque bore a simple inscription: "In unity, there is strength. In hope, there is light." Among those present was a young diplomat named Lyra, whose ancestors had been part of the Resistance. She stood before the monument, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. This is what they fought for, she thought, her gaze tracing the names etched into the leaves. A galaxy where we stand together. As the ceremony unfolded, messages of goodwill poured in from across the stars. Songs were sung, stories were shared, and new alliances were forged. The galaxy, once fractured and divided, had become a tapestry of cultures united by a common purpose. Back on Earth, a quiet celebration took place in the city where Nathan Reyes had once fought and led. The park where he had told stories to children was now a bustling gathering place, its trees a living reminder of resilience and growth. Families picnicked beneath their shade, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. At the park's center stood a statue of Nathan, his figure cast in bronze and his expression one of quiet determination. Children played at its base, their games a reflection of the peace he had helped secure. Nearby, an elderly couple sat on a bench, their hands entwined as they watched the world go by. "Do you remember when this was all rubble?" the woman asked, her voice tinged with nostalgia. The man nodded, his gaze distant. "I do," he said, "and I remember the people who refused to let it stay that way." As the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow over the park, the statue of Nathan Reyes seemed to shimmer, its presence a silent guardian of the legacy he had left behind. And as the stars emerged one by one, they carried with them the stories of those who had risen in the dark, a reminder that even in the face of impossible odds, the light of hope could never be extinguished. Far beyond Earth, the crew of the Dawnlight continued their journey, charting new worlds and forging connections that would shape the galaxy for millennia to come. Their ship carried not just the technology of the Unity Accord, but the spirit of its founders, the belief that courage, compassion, and collaboration could overcome any challenge. And somewhere, in the boundless expanse of space, a young explorer gazed out at the stars, inspired by the legends of Earth's heroes. They didn't see a galaxy of darkness and danger. They saw a canvas of infinite possibilities, waiting to be illuminated by the light of those who dared to dream. The story of Nathan Reyes and the Resistance became more than history. It became a beacon, a testament to the unyielding power of humanity's spirit. And as the stars above shone brightly, their light carried a message that would echo through the ages. In the darkest times we rise,